Welcome back to Kings of Columbus Sunday Sound Off. Some podcasts, YouTube shows, Landis, have very loud introductions where like a guy comes on and says like, like holds a thing, yells, right?
Mhm.
We don't need to do that. It's a Sunday.
No, it's a Sunday. It's a little more subdued, I think.
Yeah, let's relax. Let's talk about what Ohio State did against Marshall on Saturday. Let's talk about what's ahead for Ohio State. And I am excited to welcome Ohio State to the national college football conversation, which they have not been a part of through the first 4 weeks of the year. And we talk about this a lot I feel this way with NFL players sometimes. I really feel it with CJ Stroud, that the whole world is like, hey, how about that? And everybody who's followed Ohio State is like, yeah, I feel that about this team. That like the world, because who's been paying attention through Mac off Marshall? And now you're going to send this Ohio State team out into the world. It was a natty or bust conversation. Hey, look at the NIL. Hey, look at all the guys who stayed and then vanished for 4 weeks. And now Michigan State ahead. Let's get into Big Ten play. Oregon, Iowa, Nebraska, not far over the horizon. It'll be nice to have other people see what Ohio State is.
I do feel like Ohio State, not necessarily flying under the radar, because I don't know that Ohio State ever does that, but I don't think has captured much attention, and I don't mean that in the sense that Ohio State has played poorly, because it hasn't, but there's just not a whole lot going on with the schedule. There have been other games that I think have occupied sort of the nation's attention ahead of Ohio State, but though. And honestly, even this coming week might be more of the same, only because Ohio State is playing on Peacock, and there are a couple of pretty big night games on linear television, as they say. So I really think the kind of I don't know if coming out party is the right word, but the opportunity for a lot of the country to get to see what Ohio State's about is going to still be in 2 weeks when it plays Iowa at home.
Yeah,
I don't know yet whether I think there's a decent chance that's maybe like the NBC night game that weekend. So
okay,
we'll see. I don't know just yet. That's just me kind of speculating. But no, I do think you're right, and I do think the CJ Stroud comparison is pretty spot on, right? Because everyone who's living and breathing and dying with the Buckeyes knows what this team is about through 3 games. But still wondering, I think, maybe exactly what that is, because the opponents have been the opponents. But there are just a lot of other teams that are getting a lot of oxygen compared to Ohio State right now across the country.
So you use the term, like people say, flying under the radar. Can we use the term flying over the radar? That maybe they're like a bomber that's way up there.
Oh, way up.
And you're like, I know they are up there, but they're like 60,000 feet up. And I know they have big bombs, but I cannot see them. And there are clouds. So I'm kind of going to focus on these guys right here. Mm-hmm. But when they start dropping bombs, I am really worried. So they're flying over the radar right now. They're above the clouds. And I don't know, when you get ready to drop the bombs, do you have to dip lower and like open your bombing doors? And everybody's like, oh, they're dipping lower. Okay, now they're dipping. Or if they just stay up there and drop the bombs, but the bombs are coming.
I don't know aircraft well enough to know at what altitude you need to be to drop a bomb, but I like the analogy nonetheless.
And it's one of those of like, let's not scream on a Sunday, but let's use inappropriate war analogies. Welcome to your Sunday. Let's just relax and talk ball. So
yeah, let's talk ball.
All right, so you got stuff from our. Go ahead. But we are going to get to the tech subscribers. They sent stuff that we're going to respond to.
Well, no, that's what I was kind of going to get into. But I thought there are specific things about backup quarterback and running back and the defense, I think, mostly, and also Joel Klatt. we can get into that if you want to. But I wanted to start with this from Zach, which was more of an overall view on things. And he just said, it's time to get in the conference play. They won 49-14. They showed what makes them so dangerous. Pockets of not being as sharp are going to happen, and they did a good job of limiting that and getting through it. You can take as much as you want from this game, but it still shouldn't change your opinion of the team either way, which is like basically exactly how I feel. After a 49-14 win where the offense scored almost every time it had the ball and had a couple of one-play touchdown drives, and the defense for like a drive or 3 did not look all that good. But I don't know that I was like, Ohio State's got problems. Marshall only lost by 30. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. That's how I feel. I don't know how you feel coming out of it.
No, I think that's fair. Just double checking here. Ohio State's tied for third in the nation in points per game at 52.3. Ole Miss 55, Tennessee 54, then Miami and Ohio State 52.3, Indiana. Get my Signetti Sigs back out again. 50.5, Alabama 49. So we have been around enough. We have seen, I have covered. These fans have watched September games that are actually trouble. Like if we want to go back to like whatever 17-3 against Ohio University kind of stuff, right? If we want to go back to benching your quarterback against Northern Illinois and Hawaii and stuff, like that's what September trouble looks like. This is not that. And I do think just for the health and welfare and mental well-being of players and coaches, but mostly fans, because that's who we care about the most, we just have to make sure that we recalibrate ourselves for everything in a 15 or 16 game regular season. And I do think it affects September. And so it's just a long season and you do have to keep guys healthy and you do want to keep the pedal down, but also be smart about it. And I just think it's a different deal than when there were times when Jim Tressel teams struggled in September. And it's like, listen, brother, you're getting 12 of these. There was a time when you got 11 of them, and then you played a bowl game or a national championship game, and that was it. So when you screwed around in September, that was a larger chunk of who you were and what you were and the opportunities you had, and it mattered more. So there's nothing that is worrying me, but even if there is have we not had various keep the pedal down discussions about Ryan Day over time?
Yeah.
I think we have to with it. It doesn't mean we can't have that conversation, but we just have to make sure we're now having that conversation in a 12-team playoff world and what that means. And so, and an NIL world and a transfer portal world where there's multiple reasons of like why you might want to be doing things. So we just have to have that in the back of our mind.
I think that's right. But that doesn't mean I think we need to be sort of totally dismissive of everything that happens, right? I think I agree. There's things that happened in that game that are worth chewing on a little bit, I think. Yeah. Especially on the defensive side. And so last week Ohio State was off, and Ryan Day multiple times did not refer to it as an off week, did not want to refer to it as a bye week. He wanted to refer to it as an improvement week, where they were hyper focused on individual areas of improvement, both for players and obviously the team at large. So Brian asked, did the defense and special teams participate in improvement week, or was that just an offense thing?
What did you think were the worst parts? So they kicked the ball out of bounds all the time. They're going to kicker lost his job.
3 times in a row, Jaden Fielding kicked the ball out of bounds. I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen a kicker get the yips on kickoffs.
He's not going to be the kickoff guy next week. Is that right?
I can't imagine. They moved on to Austin Snyder. Guy? Yeah, they moved on to Austin Snyder, who's a walk-on, joined the program 2 years ago from Findlay. I think is a D3
Finland?
School. Findlay. I don't know. I apologize to Ohio.
Not the nation of Finland.
Not the nation of Finland, the town of Findlay, Ohio. Is that where Ben Roethlisberger's from?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where he was, and now he took over for Jaden Fielding, and I think kicked both of his kicks out of the end zone, if I'm not mistaken, or into the end zone. But I don't think we're going to see Jaden Fielding get back on that particular horse.
Can I also just, as a point of reference, on an Ohio State show, when you talk about Findlay, Ohio, you do not say that's where Ben Roethlisberger is from. You say that's where Aaron Kraft is from.
Oh, sorry. Dr. Kraft.
That's right.
Yeah.
More reason.
Yeah.
Dr. Kraft is from Findlay.
My apologies. So yeah, they kicked
Charge.
the ball.
We should have called him Dr. Charge back when he was taking like 30 charges a game. Oh, Dr. Charge throwing his body in front of another guy driving the lane. Dr. Charge. But there's so many guys. I've covered enough guys who, when they're an undergrad and they're smart, you think like, you're going to be a doctor. And then they all turn out to be announcers.
Oh,
he's actually a doctor.
He actually is a doctor. Yeah.
I covered a baseball player one time who I thought was so smart. I was like, we talked about him like running for political office one day. He just has a baseball podcast.
Who is it?
Doug Glanville.
Oh yeah, I love Doug Glanville.
I know, but shouldn't he run for office? It's like, no, I just want to sit around and talk about baseball into a microphone. We do that. You're smarter than this. Do more. Aaron Kraft actually did it. Dr. Charge.
Dr.
From Findlay, Ohio.
Glanville's he go to Princeton, right? He's an Ivy League guy.
Yeah, and now he just shouts into a microphone like a numbskull like us.
Yeah, you go to a state school for that stuff, like I did.
Aspire for more. Aspire for more. This is not aspirational. This is not the dream. I was talking about that. We were having that conversation the other day, like with my kids. It's like my daughter's traveling with someone whose dad's a brain surgeon. And I'm just like, oh, what's your dad do? He's a podcaster. Like, what is that? What an embarrassing answer for my children. Oh, what does he podcast about? Making the world a better place? No. Nope. Anyway, Doc in charge from Findlay, Ohio. Sorry. Yeah. So Findlay, so they have to change kickers. So like, and that's the end of that story. Jaden Fielding doesn't do that anymore.
I think so. And then the other major thing was Brandon Ennis dropped a punt that was recovered by Marshall, but then it was overturned because Marshall didn't put enough guys on the line of scrimmage. Like the Sun in that particular situation seemed pretty brutal, and it seemed like returners were kind of fighting it all game when they were facing the south end zone. So I don't know that I'm making too much of that. And I think if Ohio State was making a lot out of that, they wouldn't have continued to put Brandon Ennis back there. So like that was bad. Obviously, you don't want to drop punts, but I don't think that was like emblematic of some kind of larger issue. It was mostly just the kickoffs that were just kind of like, what the heck is happening?
And Brandon Ennis is the right guy for that. Sometimes if a guy drops it and you've been wondering the whole time, is that the guy who should be back there? Like, why are they putting their seventh best receiver back there? Or why are they putting a safety back there? Or why are they putting one of their starting receivers, but it's the guy with the worst hands? Or why are they putting a guy back there who just like is constantly feels like Brandon Ennis is the profile of the guy you want back there, right? And then so it's the right guy, the right profile. He just dropped one.
Yeah, and he was going to score on another return, and he got tackled by the turf monster. Like I very much think he's the right guy back there. I think he is probably the best guy we've seen back there. I don't know, in like
since Jalen Marshall.
Maybe Jalen Marshall. Yeah,
is he like the right combination of reliable and explosive?
I think so. So I mean, so far, I guess that dropped notwithstanding, but I think so. Then they put him at kick returner in this game too. They removed Jaden Ballard from that spot because of the mistake that Jaden Ballard had in the last game where he called for a fair catch and let the ball bounce, which like you cannot do. And they said, okay, you're not doing that anymore. So Brandon Ennis is also the kick returner. I think he's the right guy. I just think that was like a one-off kind of funky play. I think it's more the sloppiness for me in this game is much more about the defense and whether or not Marshall did anything on its 2 scoring drives. I always try to point this out too. Like, yes, Marshall moved the ball. Marshall had 2 long scoring drives. It also averaged like 2 yards per play on its other 40 plays. So it's not like it was continuously moving the ball on Ohio State, but it had 2 drives that I think are worth talking about because it did involve a lot of quick passing game, a lot of quarterback run game, and a lot of just sustaining stuff against a defense that looked kind of flat. So then you just start asking like, okay, if you can take that and extrapolate it and apply it to another more talented opponent, is that a potential issue for Ohio State moving forward? So I think that is like a fair question that a lot of people have coming out of this game. Even like Lane asked the question, like, can Michigan become a more lethal version of what Marshall was? I think no. I think no is the answer to that question. But I think I understand the sentiment. It's like, okay, we saw a team run its quarterback to some effect against Ohio State. Who else might do that? And should we be worried about it moving forward?
So running the quarterback is the number one story in football right now. Mm-hmm. So this is not an unusual conversation. Stone Earl is actually okay. Is that Stone Earl has a little something? Is that fair to say?
He's got a little something to him. Yeah, I think he's like a little bit of a gamer. He's fairly athletic. He was pretty accurate, I thought, before he got hurt on Saturday. So
let me ask you, this maybe is not, so in watching last weekend, in watching the Utah State game, I was like, I don't know about the Utah defense. They got pressure. They got after people. They had a couple picks, but they also gave up a couple big plays. And it made me question the Utah defense. And a lot of it was because they were facing a mobile enough guy at quarterback who could make enough plays for Utah State. And then when it came to let's win time, Utah against Oklahoma State this week, like their defense won the game for them. And this reminds me a little bit of that there were moments for Marshall that it was like the quarterback and what they were doing was just good enough to provide a couple moments to make you ask the question. But I don't think you're then afraid of the answer. It's enough to ask the question, what was up with the defense? But then when you really think about it, it's like, okay, I think it's okay. Because this was one of the things I came away from. I thought on a couple of their drives when Marshall was moving the ball, I thought they made throws and catches at times with Ohio State DBs like right next to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like good coverage, and Marshall made a play anyway. And then there were two plays that stood out to me. One was a third down conversion where Ohio State brought 6 and left everybody in single coverage, and Jordan Hancock got beat across the middle. And if you freeze it, you can see the moment when Jordan Hancock is flat-footed as the guy makes his break, and that's it. And he's behind him, and he's open on the third down. And I think they score on that drive. And the other one is a touchdown catch in the back of the end zone, and you can see Lathan Ransom in coverage as it comes to him flat-footed in the break, and he's behind, and that's it. But most of the other time, they were making plays where it's like, hey, it's a 7-yard completion as Denzel Burke is draped all over the guy. Hey, it's a 9-yard completion as Davis and Nick Bignosin is punching the ball, trying to punch the ball out through the guy's arms. He's right next to him. I thought there were maybe like 3 or 4 like bad plays by the Ohio State defense. And the rest of the time, you give Marshall credit. And then the rest of the time after that, like the Ohio State defense was making plays. Like that's a long answer. But I think if you really said to yourself, however many offensive plays Marshall ran, how many like bad plays did the Ohio State defense had? I don't think the answer is 17.
Yeah, I think it's
the
a
answer
handful.
Is 6 or 4. But it just so happened Marshall was competent enough to turn a couple of those mistakes into points. And so instead of it being 49-3 or 49-6 or 0, it's 14, and the question gets asked, but I don't think the answer is bad for Ohio State.
I think I'm with you. I will say, like, I didn't watch Marshall before this game. Why would I? But I was looking some stuff up, and Marshall did run the quarterback more in this game than it had in its previous 2 games. I wonder whether or not that was a wrinkle that Jim Knowles was entirely prepared for. I did not think Jim Knowles called a great game, or didn't call a great half. I didn't think he called a great first half. He just seemed a little slow on the adjustment to the quarterback run stuff. I thought the play you're referencing where Jordan Hancock gave up that completion, I thought blitzing there was not the right move. It was like third and fairly long. I think it was like third and 8.
I think it was 8. I think it was third and 8. And they brought 6.
Third and 8, and like it's, I mean, Jim Knowles does that. Like I get it. You want to ratchet up the pressure and like really get after a quarterback and hit him, and maybe you get a turnover there. I understand the thought process, but that to me felt like a play where you could probably just play it pretty straight up and you're probably getting off the field. And Ohio State didn't. So I thought there were some miscalculations on when to get after the quarterback, and then just a relative kind of slowness to adjust to things. And Ohio State, I think, by and large, got figured out by the second half of the game, and it certainly helped that Marshall ended up losing Stone Earl and had to play its backup quarterback who looked pretty overwhelmed. But I think Marshall maybe sprung a surprise. Is probably too strong of a way to say it, but I think had a little something for Jim Knowles that he wasn't quite ready for, and perhaps in a different kind of game he would have been quicker to adjust. Like it's not. I think that maybe that's a situation where, like, you have a talent advantage. Perhaps you don't want to overcorrect on the fly and put yourself in a worse position. Maybe I'm giving Jim Knowles too much credit there, but I just don't know that another team is going to come out and like kind of surprise Ohio State in that kind of way. I think there's something to the idea of running the quarterback and quick passing game too. If you want to lump in people's defensive line concerns, like Lucas said, the defensive line having no push is getting old. I understand the Bosa brothers and Chase Young aren't walking through the door year after year, but to have no legit threat of double digit sacks for the better part of 4 years is ridiculous. And there were a lot of other defensive line concerns, and the defensive line did not get a lot of pressure. I did look up. So Marshall had 31 dropbacks in this game.
Okay.
26 of them were no step or one step drops. So the ball was getting out quick. It's just hard to generate pressure when a team is doing that. But if you want to look down the road, like Oregon's going to do that. Like that is Oregon's offense. 100%. Oregon's offense is quick passing game, work the perimeter, try to get some numbers advantages, and then run their quarterback and run the ball into those numbers advantages. So like I think there's enough there to like kind of raise your eyebrow, like, oh, they got to get that figured out. Ohio State's defense has to get that figured out. But I don't know if what we saw against Marshall was like the beginning of some underlying issues sort of coming to the forefront. I think it was more just like you weren't ready for that in this particular game. And a quarterback and some receivers made a couple of plays that I thought were more about them making plays and less about Ohio State being sort of like being dysfunctional. I don't know, but I don't want to be dismissive of it because I know people are pretty fired up about how the defense played. I thought they played very flat with like sort of no energy coming off of a week off. That much is true, but like the schematics of it,
Yeah.
I just think it's something that Ohio State will probably get figured out now that it's happened to them.
So that's difficult. So we're talking about a 3rd and 8 play where they brought 6. And it's like, well, why did they blitz 2 guys there? And it's like, well, because we're talking about how they don't get a lot of 4-man pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to just sit back? Here's the thing. If you are going to have teams get the ball out quickly, I still believe in the ability of the Ohio State corners to cover that. I don't know. Is Oregon going to win fast enough against those guys? That if their strategy is to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly, I thought the Ohio State DBs were there, and Marshall made a couple plays.
Mm-hmm.
I don't come and I think we cited the 2. I still believe in that, and I thought. I mean, you just saw like Caleb Downs making an open field tackle or 2. Lathan Ransom. I think the safeties are downhill. I like the secondary making plays in space, and I like the ability of the top 3 corners to far more often than not be Velcro to a guy on a quick hit and route. So I am willing to give. I understand, like the quarterback run game. We need to break this down. Like we really, because a lot of this quarterback run game in college football is like it's a 3rd and 5 scramble that's keeping a drive alive, and that's like it's happened. It's literally happening to everybody, and it's the thing that drives defensive coordinators crazy. And we are at the point if this is a good year for Ohio State to have a quarterback who can move a little bit, because if everybody else was doing this and Ohio State didn't have a quarterback who could move, I think people would be like, well, how come our quarterback never does that? Mm-hmm. We are just in that world right now. But I don't think it's a formula to beat this defense. I think it's a thing that can happen, but I don't know that a team can come in and game plan. It's like, all right, how are we going to deal with the Ohio State defense? Like, we're just going to scramble on 3rd and 5.
Right. And I don't even like, and who is the, I don't even know like who the quarterback they face is that would even scare you with an ability to do that in the regular
season. And like, even to bring
up
Michigan, it's like, could Michigan hit the quick throws that Marshall hit?
No.
Who throws the ball better, Marshall or Michigan? Marshall does.
Marshall. Yeah.
So like, and who throws the ball better, Marshall or Iowa?
I think probably Marshall. I would take Stone Earl, I think, over Cade McNamara.
Yeah. So like you start entering that conversation. And now if you want to have a conversation about stopping a run game, but like, I think Ohio State again is pretty, I think who can stop Caleb Johnson? Who can stop Kalel Mullings? Like a lot of people have trouble with that, but I don't fear Ohio State's ability there. So I think you're right. Let's not be dismissive of it. That we're not going to bury our heads in the sand. But I don't think it was like a consistent pressing issue that looks like a weakness. I think it's a thing that happened. I don't think it looks like a hole in the defense. Do you agree with that?
I think that generally, just sort of about like the entire operation. But I think I get the thing I sort of get the most and kind of put the most credence in is people's like continuing to be frustrated by the defensive line just like kind of disappearing at times, right? And if you look at like sacks and pressures, like it's been a consistent decline for like over 3 games. Overall, the numbers I think are still kind of fine comparatively to the rest of the country. But, you know, people that watch this show and watch these games are watching it more intently than that. And they know that it wasn't, I agree with the assessment that it wasn't good enough against Marshall. Like even if you take into account the fact that it was a lot of quick passing and not a whole lot of pure drop back and not very many opportunities to actually kind of pin your ears back and rush the passer, there were enough snaps where I'm just like looking at the line and thinking to myself, like, how is JT Tuimoloau getting blocked on this play? Or like, why is Jack Sawyer not in the backfield? Why is Hiro Kanu getting pushed off the ball? Right. And like Tyleik Williams didn't play and clearly seems like he's a big part of it. But I do think the lack of defensive line, just sort of presence, is not a one game thing. It's kind of the first time I noticed it this year, but it's not the first time I've noticed it over the last couple of years.
I think that's officially a 5-year thing,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
This is the post Chase Young world where I feel like this has been a constant discussion. And you always talked about with Larry Johnson, tools in the toolbox.
Hmm.
Let's make sure we have all, we work with our hands all the time. You want to have a bunch of, do they have a lot of moves? I think like the toolboxes are smaller.
It feels like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the case, or like I don't know. Like, did Chase Young have a robust toolbox, or is he just a genetic freak? You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what the answer to that question is. Like, I do think like there are times where I'll watch like Caden Curry win a pass rush, or even Mitchell Melton, and I think that was a pretty savvy move. Like, I like that. That was
Yeah.
pretty good. I guess I maybe don't think that like Jack and JT, who were kind of like the headliners, um, are like super versatile in the way they get after a quarterback. They're
Yeah.
a little one note at times, and oftentimes that can be effective, but it's probably not as effective as people would like it to be.
Yeah. I think Chase Young had an okay toolbox, but also you could have just said to Chase Young, like, hey, man, what's in your toolbox? A hammer. Oh, cool. Like, what else? Just a hammer. Oh, what are you going to do with that hammer? I'm going to use it. Who are you going to use it on? I'm going to use it on you. You don't need anything else in your toolbox then, right?
Right.
You're a right tackle and you're like, when the ball is snapped, I'm running the other direction. Oh, that guy only has one thing in his toolbox. Yeah, I know, but it's a hammer. And have you seen him use it?
Yeah.
So is it fair? But we're in year 5 of, is it fair to compare everybody to Chase Young? And we are officially at we're not doing that anymore. We're comparing, we're asking, like, could you be 60% of Chase Young? And maybe the answer is for year 5. Still, like, when it comes to only rushing the passer, the answer is still no. They do not have a 60% of Chase Young.
Yeah, and I also think like because I think the Bosa's are very sophisticated pass rushers, which is why I think their production from college has translated to the NFL and Chase Young's has not. But Ohio State doesn't really appear to have either of those two options. They don't have a guy who's just like super plugged into his craft, who finds different ways to win all the time, and then they don't have a guy who makes offensive tackles pee their pants when they line up across them, like Chase Young.
But they have 2 5-star seniors.
Yeah.
You would think they would. I still wonder. It's like, is it just that, like, is Kenyatta Jackson that guy and he just never plays? I don't know. Maybe he's just that guy in my mind, but
because he certainly looks like he should be the guy.
Yeah. Caden Curry had a nice interior pass rush where I think the guard didn't know what the play was and like didn't try to block, but that's what it looks like when a guy wins in a nanosecond. And when you go around the country, you do see it happen elsewhere. It's not like it's never happening. It's like, did you see that play Mason Graham made where he beat the guy in half a second and was in the quarterback's lap? And it's like, yeah, I did see that. It's like, did you see it in the Ohio State game? Not as much as you'd like to.
No, but I think the guy over the last 2 years who has most consistently done that is Tyleik Williams, and he didn't play in this game.
So, like, if someone said Bill Landis, who is Ohio State's best pass rusher?
Tyleik Williams.
So it's one of those, again, like we have to be smart about the conversation then too. It's like, hey, do you have questions about Ohio State's offensive line? Yeah. Did Donovan Jackson play? No. Oh, he played yesterday. It's like, okay, well, so we need to see what it looks like with Tyleik, but we also now are in year 5 of evidence gathering of in the post Chase Young world. Most of the time it feels like it's not as good as it could be.
Yeah, I think that's right. Did you, so Jordan had a thought about Sonny Styles specifically. He said, I thought Sonny Styles showed his first signs of growing pains and being hesitant to kind of get into the hole and fit up runs. And there were a lot of other just sort of like general comments on the linebacker play that I think is like sort of tied to the way the defensive line played. But when you were watching, was there anything sort of like alarming to you? Like, boy, the linebackers look a little bit out of sorts in this game.
No, I didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like front of mind. I just would like, listen, I've been for a long time sort of like, let's hold Ohio State to a high standard. Let's not be afraid to be critical. And I think that's a smart place to be. But I just want to be careful about Marshall averaging 2.9 yards per carry. So, like, are we, do you think we're in like a run fit world Like, did you feel like, oh, let's have a run fit conversation when they average 2.9 yards per carry?
No, I think we're in a that was a weird scheme to play against that style of offense world. But I also I don't think that it'll happen again.
Yeah.
I think like the line clearly CJ Hicks is still searching for whatever he's searching for. Arvell Reese has surpassed him. And if you want to say like based off what we've seen through 3 games that you think Arvell Reese should play even more than Sonny Styles, I think I'd probably agree with you. I don't know that Sonny's been like bad. I think he looks like a guy who's playing linebacker for the first time sometimes. But no, I don't know that I'm on the path of like these linebackers are a problem, or that there was something in that game that really worries me down the road. I mean, we'll see, right? It's hard to say because of how overmatched an opponent like Marshall is and how overmatched the first 3 opponents have been. There'll be more like for like athletes on the field when Ohio State plays Michigan State on Saturday night, and like Aiden Childs can move a little bit, and like Nate Carter and Kayvon Lynch Adams are good running backs who will make you pay if you don't tackle them. So we'll see. We'll that'll be a little bit more of a fact finding endeavor, I think, on Saturday about this defensive front and the linebackers. But I don't know that I'm like super concerned about like the run fit stuff or linebackers being up to par just yet.
8 punts, 2 touchdowns, and a stoppage on downs. Marshall's 11 possessions. 8 punts, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's all. Like I am not coming out of this thinking that Ohio State has a lot to fix. That's not I want to talk about the offense, but like that's not where that was not my overarching thought from that game. I thought it was much more about, I think Ohio State is a more complete team than almost anybody out there. I think there are a lot of teams who like the thing they do best might be better than how Ohio State does that thing, but a lot of those other teams have a hole. I don't feel like this team has a hole, which I think we talked about coming into the season. Mm-hmm. And I actually think there's a greater level of precision in some things. I think this is a very good combination of talent and precision in a lot of ways that maybe has not always been the hallmark of even very good Ohio State teams.
I think I agree with that. I'm excited to get some better data points, I guess, to support that theory, but I think I agree with you. All right, let's talk about offense. Do you want to? We have run game stuff. We have Will Howard stuff. We have backup QB stuff. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start with the run game.
Okay.
I feel like I have some run game thoughts.
Yeah, so I'll just I'll read these two. Again, there were a lot of comments. I just kind of grabbed 2 that I thought sort of summarized the general consensus. Pat said the run game looked fantastic today. The backs are breaking tackles and hitting holes hard and quick. It's really nice to see. And then Ian said, since when do all of our running backs run so violently? It's awesome.
So it is a beautiful, violent ballet right now, I think, offensively. Yeah. So neither Henderson nor Judkins goes down on the first hit. They don't. They take care of their guy.
Yeah, which like we knew about Quinshon Judkins, but I think has been a very pleasant surprise relative to Travion Henderson through 3 games.
I mean, I think it feels like Travion's burst has rubbed off on Quinshon, and Quinshon's toughness has rubbed off on Travion.
100%.
And it's what do you call it? You have thunder and lightning, and then they rub against each other, and then it's just they're a storm. They're both a storm. They're both thunder and lightning and hail and tornadoes. Nah, not tornadoes, but like when you think it might be a tornado.
Yeah.
Like I thought, like there were, because again, we were talking a lot on KOTN on Saturday night. There were just plays. Khalil Mulling saved Michigan by being refused to be tackled. There were games where guys refused to be tackled, and then it's like, yeah, no, Ohio State did that too. And this is the thing about Ohio State. I think Ohio State's run game looks like a team that relies on a run game. I think they are running it with enough precision and violence, with scheme, blocking, and the ball carriers themselves, that if you only watched them run, you'd be like, this must be a run-first team that they have to lean on this. Uh-huh. Because they must rely on this because they are really good at it. Oh, okay. I just watched all the run plays. let's flip to the pass plays. I bet you they're not very good passing it. And then you flip to the pass plays, and Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka make your TV explode. And you're like, they also throw it like that? Because they run it like Michigan. They run it like Iowa. And they have Jeremiah Smith. I don't know that I've seen them run it like this before. So the one that I don't want to jump the gun. The one, though, the play I wanted, I think it's the 85-yard touchdown run is the one I want to talk about. Or is it the previous Quinshon run? Anyway, they had a run. They had 3 wide receivers to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 4 DBs on that side of the field covering those 3 receivers. So that's 4 defensive players out of the play. So now you're down to 7. They're down to 7 players. They ran a play. And this is the kind of thing that everyone, you do it since 2021. This is what you've done with Michigan. They pop a huge run play and then you rewind it and you freeze frame it at the moment of contact. And you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect blocks. And it's a guy and a guy and a guy and a guy. So there's 4 defenders taken out because they're scared of the 3 receivers. And then you wind it back on that. There are the 5 Ohio State offensive linemen and Will Kazmarek, the tight end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect, 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 perfect. And then there's 1 guy left. And that safety takes a maniac wrong guess on the hole. Game over.
Yep.
And that's all it was. It was a nice design, but it was precise execution of it, and it looks easy. And then they're not. Yes, Travion and Quinshon are running through tackles. There are some of these plays no one's touching them, and it was like I don't. That has not been a hallmark of Ohio State, has it? That's the Michigan game plan. Freeze it. 7 perfect blocks. There were a couple plays in this game where I froze it and counted up the perfect blocks, and I cannot remember doing that with Ohio State.
It hasn't been that way in a long time. I think there were times during the Urban Meyer era, specifically 2014, where they were really on point with their run game and precise. But even that, while fairly diverse, is not as diverse as what Ohio State is doing now. This is what I've wanted Ohio State's offense to be since like 2018. Like, no offense to really good quarterbacks who throw the ball around. I think if you don't come with a run game, eventually it's going to bite you. And I think for too long, the run game at Ohio State has been like an afterthought. And the thing that Ryan Day called when he felt like maybe he had thrown the ball too many times in a row and there wasn't a whole lot of creativity or thought behind it. And like, now it is the thing. Now it is the thing that everything else in the offense is built off of. And that's great as an idea, but then you also have to execute it well. And they're doing that too. I think up front, I think the receivers blocked awesome against Marshall when they were asked to. The tight ends, I think, blocked pretty well against Marshall. And then the running backs are sort of doing the thing that running backs have to do, which is like, okay, we accounted for everybody except for the one guy we couldn't block. You make that guy miss. And then they're making that guy miss. And then you watch the way they throw the ball, and it's still a whole lot of RPO. It's a lot of play action, like that screen to Emeka Egbuka on the first play was like a fake kind of gap scheme play action thing where they threw a tunnel screen to Emeka and then it was perfectly blocked and he ran untouched for a touchdown. It's like it's just, it looks how I thought it would look. Like when they got Chip Kelly, I was like, okay, like here's my wildest dreams version of what this offense could look like. I just didn't know that they kind of like get into it as quickly as they have. And I know it's going to be more difficult when they start playing better defenses, specifically Iowa in a couple of weeks. But like Michigan State's defense is actually like kind of salty, so it'll be a little more challenging, I think, to be as precise as Ohio State has been now that Ohio State is into Big Ten play. But I do very much feel like this is a winning recipe with the way they're running the ball, yes, but the way they care about running the ball, I think more to the point, has been very exciting to see through 3 games.
I would like to suggest this to people. I think it's a good family friend bonding experience. Find a couple of these plays. Find the one we're talking about. Or I think the Emeka screen is another perfect example. Mm-hmm. Josh Simmons, Seth McLaughlin, and Josh Fryer all got out in front of that thing and made blocks. Donovan Jackson also got out a little bit and turned back and made a block on a guy, make sure he wasn't there. Yep. G. Scott got out and made a block, and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate made blocks. So that's 4 offensive linemen, a tight end 5, and 2 receivers 6'7" making blocks. Emeka Egbuka was not touched. It is a great Sunday bonding experience before the NFL games start. Get the big TV in your living room, get to the point, freeze frame all the perfect blocks, and then gather everybody in the house. Say, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. And just point. And just point at guys all doing their job. And then say, that's how I want our family to be. This week, I want us all to make our blocks. Because even on the, it's like, it's like, oh, the explosion of Emeka Buga. This is not, that's not what that play was about at all. This is a night. Remember what year was it when Ohio State just was throwing bubble screens to the receivers who were getting tackled for half a yard all the time? And we were like, why do you keep throwing those? And Ryan Day was like,
2021, I think.
Okay. And Ryan Day was like, they work when you block. And they kept throwing them. And the receivers and the tight ends out there never made their blocks.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's a good blocker? Carnell Tate.
Yeah.
Carnell Tate. I don't know what Carnell Tate's going to get in terms of targets and statistics this year. Is he? I guess Emeka is a good blocker too. But like Jeremiah's a pretty good blocker. They threw like a little bubble screen for a 7-yard gain. And all I could think of was how we would have been screaming about that 3 years ago. And it's the same play. And the difference now is that the guy makes a block. And 3 years ago, they never made the block.
Yeah.
Everybody on this team is blocking. It feels like the arrival. And it's not that Ryan Day, it's not like they never did it. But is there an overall precision to this offense, particularly when it comes to blocking, that is cropping up with the arrival of Chip Kelly? That it's not explosion on its own, it's explosion within precision, which is even better.
I think so, and I think that is probably it's partly a byproduct of like it's all Chip Kelly has to worry about.
Yes,
and the guy who is in that role does not have a million other things to worry about, right? But I also think I was watching the pregame show, and Mark Ingram was doing a thing with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. I think this is where I heard this. And he asked him about like playing for Chip Kelly. And they said like, it's awesome, but also he's a maniac when it comes to making sure like we are detailed, like down to the studs on everything that we do. And it is a different dynamic, or at least the methodology is yielding much better results than it has previously. Cause I think it is noticeable, and probably most noticeable on the perimeter, where Ohio State is blocking exceedingly well right now. And like, that's what the offense is. Like, we have talked a lot about the Oregon offense over the last couple of years, and how it is a lot of just like quick, get it out, block and run for 70 yards. That's what this offense wants to be. I think that much is clear through 3 games. I think we know the identity. It's not a lot of bomb it down the field, because I don't think that's Will Howard's strengths. He might hit one here or there. He needs to hit one here or there. But it is going to be a lot of every pass is built off of a run. Good luck trying to defend both at the same time. Will Howard making the right decision, and then precision blocking to allow our explosive playmakers to get into space and make guys miss. Like, that is the Ohio State offense this year.
That is Bill Landis's coaching presentation. Hope all the high school coaches had a lovely time at our Kings of Columbus film session.
Yeah.
Are you going to farmer's market today?
No, the farmers markets are Saturday morning.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I could see you skipping through a farmer's market today.
Oh,
and it's like, hey, Mr. Landis, how you doing today? It's like, I'm doing great. Why are you such in a good mood? I got to tell you, Ohio State is blocking with precision on the perimeter, and I've never felt better.
No, I'm just going to have that thought in my head instead while I'm watching the Eagles try to do something that they think might be offense later on today against the Saints, but surely won't be.
I would like to strangle Nick Sirianni with my bare hands, but the joy I feel from Ohio State's precision perimeter blocking is preventing me from doing so.
Yeah. It was just, I just thought it was real. It was it was weird to me. It felt like at times some of the feedback that was coming in, and I think it was just sort of the defense playing flat, kind of coloring everything, but it felt like it was at times being applied to the offense in a way that I just did not agree with. Aside from Will Howard throwing that interception where he like overthrew Jeremiah Smith, and the defensive back like ran the route better than Jeremiah Smith did. Like, I don't know that the offense did a whole lot wrong in this game.
Were there a lot of questions about that pick, the Jeremiah Smith, Will Howard pick?
Yeah, so Colin said, this is the second game in a row where I've left with concerns about Will Howard's ability to take the top off against a good defense. He said, maybe it's just my 2015 to 2017 JT Barrett PTSD, but it's the one thing I feel like might hold this offense back from being national championship level. Am I crazy?
So this was playing in my head as I watched that play. I just want to read something from Wikipedia. We're okay with citing Wikipedia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. My favorite mistake is the first single from Sheryl Crow's third studio album, The Globe Sessions, 1998, released on August 31st, 1998. I love it. There's nothing I'd rather see than a quarterback throwing a pick trying to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith.
Right.
Congratulations all around to everybody. That was beautiful. Now, Jeremiah Smith, I thought I did nothing with that route. He just sort of was a little bit late to get going, didn't do anything, and then just sort of ran down the sideline and was like, I guess I'm not getting this. So I do think he has to. There was no release. The guy also, was playing off coverage and bailed, and it was the perfect for it being man to man. It was the perfect coverage, right? And then Jeremiah Smith, I think, recognized that this is not going to work, and did not fully give of himself to the play. And Will Howard was like, man, it's one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith. I'm taking that every day.
Right.
I hope he keeps taking it. Take it.
I want to
throw 9 picks on that play, because I bet you'll get 16 touchdowns out of it. I'm fine.
I'm pretty okay with it too. I think generally there is something about downfield accuracy that is just inconsistent, and I think will always be inconsistent with Will Howard. That to me was not an issue of accuracy. It was maybe the wrong kind of ball. If you're going to throw it, recognize that the route was capped and pull the string a little bit and let Jeremiah come back to the ball. But I think that was more about the route. And I don't know Ohio State's entire offense well enough to know if there are plays where receivers actually aren't live. But Jeremiah kind of ran that route he didn't think he was ever going to be live in the play.
Yeah.
And Will Howard was you're 1-on-1. Here you go.
Right.
So I think those two will just get on the same page, and Jeremiah Smith will forever now recognize that if he is 1-on-1, watch for the ball, because it's probably coming to you. So I did not, no red flags for me really on that particular play. I do think Colin raises a good point, just sort of generally about downfield accuracy consistently, but I think it'll probably be good enough. And also, Ohio State for the moment is pretty good at throwing the ball 5 yards and getting 70 yards out of it, so that helps make up for it.
And I guess I'm also who is the quarterback passing game team whose downfield passing accuracy you envy right now? Is Will Howard elite at that? No. But again, it's the discussion of the sport. I think Ohio State fits right into the discussion of the sport right now. Where the sport is right now, Ohio State, I think, is exactly where you want to be. Because in a world where it feels like teams have adapted to taking away the downfield passing game, they are a run-first, precision blocking, multi-back with a quarterback run threat team. I think that's who you want to be this season.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, they have Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. And many of the teams that are similar to Ohio State in the run game stuff don't have anything close to that. So I'm not disagreeing with the idea, but this is one of those where we always say Ohio State is his own standard, and we can go back in time and be like, well, are they throwing the ball down the field like they did with Justin Fields to Chris Olave? No. Are they throwing the ball down the field like they did with CJ Stroud to Garrett Wilson? No. Is anybody in the country? No. So maybe this is a moment where don't use the Ohio State standard, because if you are using the Ohio State standard right now, if you drop Justin Fields and Chris Olave into this college football season, be like, well, I don't even know. Should we just do it now? I think we're done here. You guys good? Nobody show me play action Justin Fields to Chris Olave. It ain't out there, brother.
Yeah.
So, but also people be playing 4 deep safeties against that and saying, you're not getting that. I hope you have something else, because you are not getting that, which is where I felt like this offense was at times in the CJ Stroud era. Why doesn't CJ Stroud throw it deep? Because there's safeties sitting on every route. They're not letting you do it. Okay, the sport's adjusted, but what Ohio State does right now, I think, is what you want to be.
I agree with that. And I think if for whatever reason, it would need to flip, maybe you don't have a CJ Stroud at quarterback, but I think you might have a good enough quarterback, and you certainly have good enough receivers that, like, if teams really start stacking the box on you and playing with one high safety or no high safeties, whatever, like, good luck covering
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Emeka Ibuka, right? I just think that there are multiple pathways for this offense to be effective. That
Yes.
while maybe none of them are quite as good as CJ Stroud, ball placement specialist, was at his peak, but I think I might take more really good avenues than one elite avenue and a bunch of avenues that are average. If that makes sense.
Wouldn't you be super curious to see the defense that says we're taking away Travion and Quinshon? And I'm like, I like, maybe I will try that. Maybe somebody will be like, well, you're not running it on us. Here's 8 in the box. Good luck. We'd rather lose to Will Howard than to Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. I would be super interested to see that. We've been talking a lot about how Oklahoma State had a preseason Heisman guy in Ollie Gordon who's running for 40 yards a game because people are saying you're not going to do that. And Alan Bowman, who is 1/3 as good as Will Howard 2 weeks ago, threw for 395 yards because the defense just said, well, you're not going to run it. We're going to lose to Alan Bowman if we're going to lose. And then Alan Bowman beat him. And then when they played a good defense, it was like, well, we're not going Utah said, we're not going to let Ollie Gordon beat us. Alan Bowman can beat us. And it was like, can you beat us? Nope. So I will take Will Howard in that conversation, right? Like, is Will Howard good enough to beat a good defense? I would say no. Is Will Howard good enough to beat a good defense when the good defense says, we're not going to let you run the ball? Yes. Like if Will Howard is your number one way of winning offensively against a good defense, maybe not. But if he's your number two way of winning, right?
Yeah.
And because if that defense says, well, we're going to play the pass, then Ohio State's going to run it down their throats, right? And if you say, no, we're going to stop the run, now it's constant single coverage. There's not safeties lurking. You have receivers who can win more often than not. I do think he's good enough for that. And they've established, are we there? Their run first team? That's who they're going to be?
Yeah, I think so.
So, okay. I like the formula. Offensively, I like the formula.
I like it too.
I don't think anybody who's as explosive as them, I don't think runs it as well as them. I don't think Oregon runs it as well as them.
No, I don't.
With all the offensive line issues Oregon's had?
Nope.
So the teams who are as explosive don't run it as well. The teams who run it as well aren't as explosive.
Yeah. Balance.
I'd take it. I'd take where Ohio State is.
I think I would take, I mean, I think I would take where Ohio State is offensively over anybody in the country with what they're able to do running and passing. I just don't know that there's another team out there that offers you that.
I agree.
Maybe Texas. Maybe Texas.
But even Texas is like down to its third running back, you know? Like, so like with Ohio State with its dudes, I think I'd take this. And I'd take the Ohio State receivers over the Texas receivers.
Yes.
So, I mean, I might take Texas's quarterback and offensive line. I'd take Ohio State's running backs and receivers. But I think Ohio State might be close, you know, like I think Ohio State's offensive line. I don't know that Ohio State's offensive line is going to still like line up and manhandle you. But man, when they get out in space, on some of these wide runs and on screens and stuff, like let Josh Simmons and Donovan Jackson and Seth McLaughlin get out and look for guys. They're really getting to the second level and stuff too. Again, like there were times in the last couple of years where it'd be like, hey, you see how other teams, their offensive linemen get to the second level? Wouldn't it be cool if Ohio State did that? And watch Austin Sarabeld get to the second level on the Quinshon Judkins run.
Yeah.
They're doing
Seth McLaughlin lives at the second level. I love watching him play. He plays with a passion that like you just don't, that he play like sometimes you like see like a receiver like make an awesome play or like a running back make an awesome play, and they'll just like start talking crap to like the other team sideline or like their own sideline or whatever. Like very rarely do you see an offensive lineman do that, but like Seth McLaughlin does that. Seth McLaughlin runs downfield, runs somebody over, and then like gestures to the sideline like he just called a 40-yard touchdown pass, and then he just goes back to the line of scrimmage and does it all over again. And I very much think that is contagious for the offensive line. It's been really fun to watch so far.
I want us to now film a commercial where you walk up to like a 2-story house, and over the porch, it's like so it's a duplex, top and bottom. and up on the first floor, there's a big sign that says like Ohio State offensive line lives here. And you walk up and like you're there for a party because they would invite you to the party. And you knock on the door and they let you in and you're like, hey, is Seth here? And they'd be like, no, Seth moved up to the second level. And then like you go out and you walk up the stairs to the second level and Seth McLaughlin's like sitting in a lawn chair, smoking a cigar with his feet up on the rail. And you just walk over and you're like, yeah, maybe like a little inflatable pool you guys are putting your feet in. And you just sit down and it's like Bill Landis and Seth McLaughlin hanging out in the second level. Oh my God. What a day for you. What a Sunday this is going to be for you. I'm so happy for you.
I'm glad I don't get to watch Jason Kelsey anymore. So now like Seth McLaughlin is filling that void for me, which is a tremendous. I've never paid anybody a better compliment than I just paid Seth McLaughlin.
Like for 3 years, everybody was like, hey man, how Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. Isn't it great to watch Ohio State? And Bill was like, it's fine. And then it's just like, could I please get a lineman to love? And now you have them. They're playing well. Like what they're being asked to do, they're doing well.
Yeah, and I thought like Donovan Jackson for his first game did not appear really rusty at all. He played really well, I thought.
Is Austin Sterveld on like an elf line track or something? Like, is this going to be like a, hey, remember when they got this like Ohio kid? And it was like, I guess I don't know. Maybe he's okay. And it was like, oh yeah, he was like a 3-year starter and a 2-time All-American, whatever. Like,
yeah,
I didn't see this coming. It's like, what's going to happen to the offensive line? Austin Sterveld's like, we're fine.
They got to figure out like there's a little thing there with him and Tegra Shabola now.
But we went from he's a backup who had to play because everybody else was puking in camp, and now they like can't take him off the field.
Yeah, which is good, right? It's a good problem to have. Because I don't think
congrats to that guy.
Yeah, and I don't think Tegra's played poorly. I think probably eventually they'll have to pick one, but it sounded like from what Ryan Day said after the game, like they will continue to play them both until that no longer is a winning proposition. So
yeah.
And then they'll pick one, I guess. So we'll see. Tegra played more than Austin. Austin Sterveld played, I think, 3 series with the first team offense, and Tegra played the rest of the game. But yeah, Sterveld was really good on that long touchdown run from Judkins. Last thing we got a bunch of questions about, and maybe we can, I think we maybe breeze through it because it's a fairly simple yes or no question, I think. Eric, Devin Brown shouldn't get any more reps. Let Julian Sayin take the second string reps. A number from the 630 area code didn't have a name said, I would prefer to see Julian Sayin play versus Devin Brown. Julian Sayin is the future. And then Zachary said, why are we still giving 33 any snaps?
But I do want to take some of the Joel Klatt questions, right? You said there's Joel Klatt questions.
Oh, we can do that too. Yeah, we have Joel Klatt questions. I'm sorry.
So will it be one of the great mysteries of Ohio State football history how Devin Brown nearly won the starting quarterback job in 2023? Like what was happening? Because no offense to Devin Brown, but like there hasn't been anything that we've really ever seen in the game that would make you be like, oh, I can see why he like was ahead in the quarterback race with the week until the season starts in 2023. It just feels like, so is it not one of the things, right? Some guys play better than they practice. Some guys practice better than they play. Some guys practice and play the same. It feels like it must be that because he was in the fight.
Yeah,
he was in the fight, and there feels like there's a consensus around when we get to see it, we don't see it, and it's weird.
Nothing pops. Yeah, nothing pops. He had that one touchdown throw last year against Youngstown State. It was like, oh, that's a pretty good deep ball to Carnell Tate, but like aside from that, nothing has popped. And even the thing that he's supposed to do, or at least last year, was supposed to do better than anyone else in the room, which is like run the ball and like be a little bit of a problem there. I just like we've never seen it in a game. So, I am with anybody who would rather see Julian Sayin get those reps. I am fully there. I thought we might see a split of the second team reps early on. Hasn't really been the case, and honestly, like I'm assuming there'll be more opportunities, even though the schedule is now going to get more difficult. So when those opportunities arise, I absolutely think it should be Julian Sayin. And not.
Do you think we'll get there? Do you think, like from what we see in games, Julian Sayin will be the number 2 quarterback this season?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think it'll be a thing where perhaps it doesn't ever have to be said, but in Ryan Day's mind, might be factual.
Okay, I think that, and I would be in favor of that. I mean, again, Isaac Wilson is a true freshman and has started the last 2 games for Utah and has really come into his own and made the plays that he's needed to make. And if Isaac Wilson can do that for Utah, I think Julian Sayin could do it for Ohio State. And you don't have to be afraid of that as a true freshman, but also in terms of getting him ready, you may as well give him the number 2 reps at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Okay. Now we'll do Joel Klatt. From the 314, Joel Klatt sucks. From Bradley, Joel Klatt sucks. From Drew, Joel Klatt is effing terrible. From Daniel, now that you've watched the games from home, how bad do you think the commentators are? He asked us also to rank our top 3 duos. We don't have to do that. I think maybe we'll do a larger, maybe commentator conversation on Kings of the North, or maybe on the show at some point. But what did you think of your former guy, Joel Klatt?
Well, I can't say that we're breaking up because like he never agreed to go out, but like I'm going to stop asking. So I'm going to let you take this. I was not as locked in on Ohio State on Saturday as I was watching some other games. And as I rewatched most of it on Sunday, I was fast forwarding through stuff. So I did not get as much of the organic commentary, but I will say you were sending messages during the game Saturday to me that I'm not sure I have ever heard you in any context be as dissatisfied with an announcer as you were with Joel Klatt on Saturday.
It's just because I think he used to be very good. He used to be my favorite one. And I think they're like, I'm going to sound like an old, like kind of fuddy-duddy, I suppose, but I'm only 35. There is like a tenor and tone of college football discourse that exists like on the internet that at times just kind of ignores like any kind of salient analysis and just sort of trends toward what is the tikiest take I can get off right now. Yeah. And I kind of feel like that's where Joel Klatt is drifting toward. And like, I get it. He's more than just an in-game color analyst. He has a podcast. He's more of a pundit now than he probably was a couple of years ago when he was like sort of just a color analyst. But I think it has taken away from a guy that I thought was a very good color analyst a couple of years ago. And it's just like, it's a bummer. And I just thought he was off. And maybe I misinterpreted some of what he was saying during the game, but I thought he was kind of like lumping poor special teams play and flat defensive play with an overall bad performance from Ohio State that I just did not think was in any way true about the way Ohio State was playing offense. But it was mostly just like, I feel like I used to watch games that Joel called and I would learn something. And I don't, and it's not only true of him. Like we're just talking about him because he's the guy who called the game yesterday. I feel like that's true of a lot of people who call college football games anymore, but it was kind of a bummer. And I also think too, like Ohio State fans I think are pretty out on Joel Klatt now for some of the opinions he's had about Michigan as well, which like, I understand that part of it too, but I'm just talking from like a pure calling the game information kind of perspective. I think he's kind of drifted away from what made him really good previously.
I mean, we were talking about this. We were talking about this with somebody else. Like we were in a text chain, and I wasn't joking when I said like he now he's a podcast host, and I think he might be the danger of. Do people want a game on Saturday to feel like a podcast? And if it's it's hard. If it's a horrible, boring game, maybe you do. But when it's your team, I don't think, because like our people who are watching this right now get enough Ohio State podcasts. On Saturday, they want football analysis. So even if it's 49-14, I think they want honest analysis of their team and of particular plays and of particular players. But for instance, like, did they go back? am I saying that you and I are better than Joel and Gus? Am I saying that Doug Lamreese and Bill Landis are better at this than anybody on a broadcast? Yes, I am. Did they go back? Did they count up the perfect blocks? Did they have any plays on Saturday where the Fox guys went back and counted up the perfect blocks and talked about how Chip Kelly is bringing a precision in blocking to Ohio State that had not previously existed?
A little bit. Yeah. They weren't, They didn't totally ignore it. Yeah.
But who was more handsome while they did it? Joel or me? Who was more handsome though?
I mean, do you want me to answer that question?
Okay, I don't answer it. So they did it some, but like that's what you should be talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like were they natty or busting? Were they natty or busting in the course of the game?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, and I also think that the tone was thrown off from the jump because people were also mad at Rob Stone because they did an interview with Ryan Day before the game, and the first thing that was asked of Ryan Day was like, "So $20 million, huh? You guys are good, and out of your bust." And it was just like, can you think of
For
literally any
real.
other question to ask Ryan Day?
They
Like, and
natty or busted Ryan Day on the
on the
field in the
first question,
pregame.
they $20 million him and natty or busted him on in like the first question that they asked him pregame.
We've warned you about the natty or bust conversation, right? You got to be smarter. And this is like Marshall, Ohio State is a bad game for them to do on Big Noon because it's for a national audience. And if you're trying to sell Ohio State Marshall to a national audience, that's where you go. Because otherwise people are like, why is this on? It's a 40-point spread. Why are you showing this to us? And Rob Stone's like, I got it. Natty or bust. And so nationally, they're like, oh, natty or bust. I didn't know that they were going to bust if they didn't win the natty. And every Ohio State fan is like, why are you doing this? But that broadcast is not for Ohio State fans. Not when it's Big Noon. Now, when it's on ESPN2 or the Big Ten Network or whatever, then it might be more for your team. When you are Big Noon, you are not for the fans of the team. You are for the nation. When it's a big game, when the game rises to the level, that's fine then. Because when you're doing Michigan, Texas, it's like, okay, like we're all on the same page here. Whether you're a Longhorn fan, a Wolverine fan, or a national fan, we're all on the same page. When it's Ohio State Marshall, they're going to be like, did you know that Archie Griffin won back-to-back Heismans? And Ohio State fans are turning it off. So I do think we have to keep that in mind a little bit. But my main takeaway of this is I've never seen you be that mad. And that was enough for me. Because this feels like something that I would complain about. But like you do not like fly off the handle about things like this. Oh, this freaking announcer. And you did. You didn't say frickin'.
Yeah, I did.
But I inferred the frickin'.
It's always safe to infer frickin', I think. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I guess this was the first time that they have called Ohio State. And part of it is also informed by I there was a time where it very much felt like Gus and Joel were like Ohio State's guys, and
Yes,
that probably wasn't always going to be the case, right? I'm sure at some point that had to change. So like Ohio State fans, I think, just aren't of that mind as much as they used to be. So like
but that's Ohio State's fault. Because what they were, Fox was the Big Ten network.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as like people get mad about ESPN being in the bag for a conference or a team, Fox is too. They all are. They're all in with their moneymaker. And when Fox took over the Big Ten package, it was Ohio State. So Gus Johnson was having barbecues with Denzel Ward because that was the moneymaker. And then Michigan beat Ohio State 3 straight times, won 3 straight Big Ten titles, made 3 straight playoffs, and won the national championship. Of course, Fox then became a Michigan broadcast. Of course they did. They didn't change. The moneymaker in the Big Ten changed. So if that's what Ohio State fans are mad about, that's Ohio State's fault for losing that. Now, Ohio State can get that back, but you're not going to get it back in the Marshall game.
You're not going to get it back in the Marshall game. And you're also, too, you're never going to get, from an Ohio State fan perspective, you're not going to, I think, ever get anyone aside from Urban Meyer speaking about Michigan the way you'd like people to speak about Michigan, because the Fox isn't going to like upset that apple cart. You know what I mean? Like but Urban will. Urban will still go to a Michigan business class wearing a t-shirt that says F Michigan on it or whatever he did. But I think if you're longing for that, because I like Fox definitely used to be a pretty like pro Buckeye presentation. I think Urban's going to have to be the one that scratches that itch for you moving forward if you're still looking for it.
Yeah. So it's all a reality, but they shouldn't have put it on Big Noon. They were jonesing for the Buckeyes. They were in Buckeye withdrawal. They were like, oh, I mean, they were.
Yeah.
They were. Oh, I got it. Ooh, I need one. Oh, God. Oh, God. So Ohio State playing a ranked team? No, it's just Marshall, but I needed one. So like that, they shouldn't have been doing that. For real, Ohio State Marshall, it's terrible. That's a terrible Big Noon game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why the Utah-Oklahoma State game couldn't have been big noon. I get it would have been an 11 a.m. kickoff time and still
because Fox said we are not giving your conference a gazillion million billion dollars to not do Ohio State for all of September. And next week's on Peacock. We are not sitting out September with Ohio State.
Yeah.
And Ohio State said, like, well, our schedule sucks. And they're like, we don't care. We'll take Marshall. So the result is this. The result is clunkified nonsense. But Ohio State played a role in it. And we've had this schedule discussion. We know why. We know what happened. But this is what happens when you don't play anybody. They come do your game anyway, which excites you, but then the whole thing stinks because they're trying to glam up Ohio State Marshall. And the way you glam it up is by asking a gnat or your butts question 17 seconds before kickoff and then taking a good performance and sort of like trying to contextualize it like a podcast because the game itself isn't good enough to hold national interest. So it's just, we have to get away from this, and we're going to. We knew this was coming. The schedule blows. We're done with September football for Ohio State almost. One more Peacock game, and then we can get back to reality. But like, we lived through it, but it was not that fun. And I know some people are like, well, I'm glad for the easy wins. It was not that enjoyable. And Saturday was the culmination of you being like, I like this team. I like its potential. I don't like anything else around it. What's happening right now. This context is miserable. Let's get the ball that matters. And now it's here. But you know what they love, Bill? They love Sunday Sound Off on Kings of Columbus.
They do love Sunday Sound Off on Kings of Columbus, and we appreciate everyone joining us. I will say, if you have strong broadcast opinions, which you are certainly entitled to, maybe just stick with Paul Keels and Jim Lachey on Saturday night, because otherwise you'll be getting a whole lot of Colt McCoy in your life, and I promise you don't want that. I promise you don't want that.
And we could at least do it for like one group of fans. Would we volunteer to come to somebody's house and just sit in their living room and call the game?
Yeah, I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we get sued if we did it on a podcast, right? Second and 7. Will Howard back to pass?
I actually don't know the rules on
that.
There are plenty of people who do live watch-alongs, but they don't describe like play-by-play in intimate detail. So yeah, I guess you have to kind of walk that line. Yeah.
You're the chief content officer, so they'd probably sue you specifically, not the company at large or me. So whatever you say, we'll do it.
Okay. Maybe we'll do a live watch-along someday.
Okay.
It's hard with streaming now because everyone's on different timelines.
Oh yeah. Stupid streaming. Yeah, so that was good. All right, so that's our Sunday Sound Off. We appreciate everybody for joining us for it. We appreciate all the texters who sent in. Did you get a lot of good response, Landis? When you made the call out?
We did. Yeah, I know I don't have like everyone that sent everything in. I did just try to grab a couple that I think represent the general consensus that I saw. But no, really good response. It's always appreciated.
And the thing that's hard with texters sometimes is like we absorb it, right? Like it affects our view. It helps us understand what fans are thinking, even if we don't specifically read a comment on a show. Like it has an effect on us because we're like, oh, people are thinking that way. That matters to us. Or, oh, people are worried about this, or they think this is good. Or, oh, I was thinking of it this way. But a smart, educated, dedicated, loyal fan said it this way. And it made me realize, oh, we should think about it like that. So whenever we have a discourse, this is the best thing about this modern world in journalism. And there's a lot of it that's screwy, but like our greater direct connection to you so we can be better representatives and conduits for you guys, which is the whole reason we exist. So we appreciate all the texters who go ahead and send that stuff in at 614-662-4509 if you want to sign up and get a free trial and be able to participate like this. All right, we will see you guys on Wednesday for another Kings of Columbus. All week on the podcast feed, Bill and Austin and Berm getting ready for this Michigan State matchup. And of course, Kings of the North. If you're not there, you can find that feed on YouTube or any podcast feeds. We do that Monday through Thursday live at noon on YouTube, and then Saturday night at 11 p.m. with a wrap-up show for everybody in the North. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Maurice, and that was the Sunday Sound Off on Kings of Columbus.